You are listening to Veggie Doctor Radio, and this is episode number 246. Welcome to Veggie Doctor Radio. I am your host, Dr. Yami, board-certified pediatrician, certified lifestyle medicine physician, certified health and wellness coach, author, speaker, mother, wife, and human being. I passionately believe in the power of diet, habits, and mindset in sparking and sustaining well-being and joy in our lives. This podcast combines expert interviews and thoughtful monologues to explore plant-based nutrition, lifestyle medicine, parenting, mindset, and other exciting and fun topics. I hope that these episodes inspire you, uplift you, and equip you with the knowledge and tools to live your best life. Are you ready to get started? Let's do it. Hey, veggie lovers, welcome back to another episode of Veggie Doctor Radio. I am in my new office finally after 6 months of planning and purchasing and all of the stress and thought. It's still not over because we're still not fully settled in, but I'm here and I am still needing to organize my office big time. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. If you could just see the ground, there's boxes everywhere. I still have to find the best arrangement for my podcast recording and for the video podcast background, but I'm super proud of myself because I bought these LED lights. So if you're watching on YouTube and if Alejandra decides to show this part of the intro, then you'll see my cool LED lights. And also in this episode, because this was the first episode I recorded in my new office, so it's a little bit chaotic and it's not fully ready yet. But I had to start. I had to just go and be imperfect, which is always a good lesson. Sometimes you just got to do it. This episode is interesting. I am talking to Maria Cebrian, who is a third-time entrepreneur and has 14 years of experience in the digital and health and wellness industries. After selling her second company, she set out to build the most sustainable supplements on earth. She is the founder of Terraseed, a new brand of vegan, sustainably sourced supplements packaged in fully biodegradable pill bottles. So I have made a decision that I'm not going to bring a lot of guests on the show that are specifically just trying to sell things, because it makes for really awkward conversations and then things happen that are kind of awkward, and I'm not as excited about it. But this is super different because I was very piqued in my interest about the supplement industry and things that I wasn't aware of. I definitely learned some new things from Maria and some really important things, I think, for us to just be aware of. It may not completely change your habits yet, because I do feel like this is a difficult area sometimes, especially depending on where you live and what you have access to. Like a lot of my supplements, I have to order online. I can't just find at the store here for the kind of supplements I want and I trust. But there's all kinds of other things to think about, like where they source their ingredients and where the ingredients come from and how many supplements actually contain ingredients that are derived from animals, which I wasn't aware of the extent. So I think that this is a super interesting episode and one that you'll learn a lot from. And we also discuss sustainability and some of the issues that are involved with, just selling things, and especially something that you're taking day after day, month after month. It adds up. Just think, I've been vegan for almost 12 years now, and I have always been mindful about taking my supplements. That's a lot of pill bottles. That is a lot of waste. And I do my best to try to reduce my waste, but there's just so many things to think about. So I really think that you're going to enjoy this episode. In this episode, we talk about her vegan journey. We talk about her athletic experience. So she is a ultra mountain runner. So she does ultra marathons in mountains. Okay. Like when you thought that ultra running was hard enough already, she does it like up mountains. So anyway, there's just this, I'm just fascinated by the athleticism of people and what they do. So we talk about her journey, what inspired her to start a supplement company, how prevalent animal-derived ingredients are in supplements, some ingredients that would be surprising to consumers that they're actually derived from animals. We talk about the plastic waste generated by the supplement industry, and we talk about the Animal Save movement and the petition that they have started to try to prompt transparency in labeling from supplement companies, which I think is really important. So definitely jump on board on that. So we'll provide all of the links. Just so you know, I am not sponsored by this company. They haven't given me any money. I am going to try a few samples from them just because I'm curious, and I kind of, looking at the ingredients, I'm kind of on board. I like it. I haven't tried it. I haven't tried the product myself or seen the packaging or anything, but I really wanted to bring Maria on board to talk about this super important issue. And I hope that you enjoy the episode. So thank you, my veggie lovers, for being here. Welcome to all the new listeners. I hope that you stick around for a while and you listen to some of the older episodes. There's a lot of episodes, so enjoy. And now let's welcome Maria Cebrian. Maria Cebrian, welcome to Veggie Doctor Radio.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Such a nice pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, we're going to have so much fun. I am very interested in this topic, and I'm so glad that you reached out to us so that I could learn more about you and what you're doing. But before we get more into your supplement company and some of the things that you've discovered along the way, I'd like to start with your story, your vegan journey. How did you become vegan, and what were the steps that brought you to starting this company?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's a fun story, of course, like everyone has a little story. Mine started in 2016. I started like not feeling well when I was eating meat, like feeling there was something wrong with taking meat and fish. There was something funny. I started like not liking the experience. So my husband got me as a present like this book from Rich Roll. I don't know if you know this vegan athlete, and it was called The Plant Power Way, and it was full of vegan recipes and tips, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? And I started reading more about the vegan diet, the plant-based diet. So I decided to become vegetarian. For me, it wasn't like all or nothing. It wasn't like the next morning I'm vegan, and it was a bit of a process. So I started reading more about the vegetarian diet, the vegan diet. I was very interested, but I didn't feel ready. I'm originally from Spain, and I was living in Spain back in the day, and it's hard to be a vegan person in Spain, and in 2016 it was even worse. So I just started like removing meat and fish from my diet, and I felt amazing, like amazing. All my acid reflux, like stuff like that, like tummy issues were absolutely gone. I had more energy. I was like, oh my God, I'm into something here. So after that, I would say, I was trying to be as vegan as possible. And I know vegan is not just a diet, it's a whole philosophy, it's a whole way of living. So I've always been sort of taking steps towards being fully vegan. And then 5 years ago, I became fully vegan. I felt ready, and I spoke to my family and said, hey guys, I'm just going fully vegan. And my family, they were vegan, vegetarian on and off, but I've been more like sticking to the diet and the lifestyle more than them. So yeah, I decided to go fully vegan, and I'm an athlete. I'm a ultra distance marathon runner. So I was always a little bit worried about my nutritional needs. I was being like, I don't know if this is the best thing. So I started supplementing, and that's when my my experience with supplements started to be like so terrible. I hated like all this plastic. I didn't know where ingredients were coming from. Everything was very opaque. There was no transparency about the origin of the ingredients. It was really bad. It was a bad experience. I have to say that when I became fully vegan, it was probably my best year in terms of racing, and I started like getting like second place, third place in races. I've never got like any place, like I was just one. I wasn't doing this professionally or anything, but I was taking part in all these races, and I was running. It was great, but that year I started like being at the top, right? Like of all these athletes, and I was like, wow, there's something going on here. But going back to my experience with supplementation, and I think that's always like a question we get a lot, like why vegans need to supplement, and we can get into that. But my experience was really, really bad. So I started thinking like, wow, what if we build like a multivitamin for vegans with everything vegans may be lacking in their diets? That, like it's a supplement that it speaks to our values as vegans, right? So no plastic, sustainably sourced, of course, no animal ingredients. I learned before building Terraseed, I learned that a lot of ingredients in our supplements come from animals. And more than half of supplements in the US come from animals. I mean, ingredients in more than half of supplements in this market. So the two most common ingredients are gelatin and magnesium stearate. So that was appalling, right? Like that was, oh my God, we have to do something about this. So that's how I started building Terraseed, and that was my mission, to stop animal suffering and plastic pollution in this industry, and to lead a sustainability conversation in the supplement industry.
Wow, that's so fascinating. That is really incredible that you took action and you're like, I'm going to do something about this, because I think thinking about tackling the supplement industry, I would just be exhausted before I even started. So, so kudos to you. Okay, well, let's go back. I want to hear more about your running. So when did you start doing this? What kind of distances do you run, and how often do you race?
Yeah. So I started running when I was a kid. I was part of like the running club, when I was going to school. I always loved running. It was one of these things. Like I felt so free and so at ease, just running. I loved it. So I started competing when I was with, like in that team in my school. And then I stopped for a while, for about 15 years. I suppose I hit like adolescence, and it didn't feel like cool to run, like to be an athlete. I don't know, at least in Spain it was like that. So I started like being more into going out with my friends and doing other things. But running was part of my life for so many years. Then when I turned 28, I would say, I just had this call to start running again. And I started running. And, like it was at the beginning, it was like 5K races, and then it went up to 10K. And then, like that's how you make progress in this sport, right? Like you just want longer distances, or you want to be faster on your races. That's the two directions where you can make progress. Or you can go into triathlon or other type of races. So for me, it was all of that, like getting faster, running longer distances. And then I moved to the mountains, to live in the mountains when I was 33 years old. And that was my playground, right? Like I was living in the mountains, so I had to run there. And I had never run in the countryside or mountains or anything like that. It was always, I was living in a city. So suddenly it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like just running in this environment and forests and, climbing up mountains. And that's how I started running in in this category, if you want, like the mountain running category. And I've always taken, like part in races. I love racing. I think it's very exciting. The atmosphere, like in mountain running races is awesome. Everyone is really nice. So I started like racing longer distances until I got to almost 100K, um, 100 kilometers. And it was great, but I'm 51 right now. I have an injury. I was running in Boulder in Colorado. I was just running down this valley, and last summer I fell, and my hip was broke, and my femur was dislocated. So I'm not running now. I'm just trying to recover as fast as I can, so I can go back and continue running. But yeah, it's been like it's been great. It's been like 24 years of like truly enjoying running in a way that is, for me, is very spiritual. It's almost like the way I connect with nature and myself, and I think long distance races are almost like the life journey, where a lot of things happen. And I think these are experiences where you get to know yourself, and there's like an inner journey where you connect with something that is special. And I'm not saying it's for everyone. I'm not saying it's easy. It's actually very tough, as you can imagine. But there's some beauty and so enjoyment in doing something like that. And it's been a big part of my life. I'm very, and I think for me it's been like this connection with nature. When you race, you normally race alone. Like the races, like stretch, and suddenly, like in half an hour there's no one around you, and it's, oh my god, I'm on my own in the forest. And it gets dark, and then you're just there on your own. So it's a very special experience.
Wow. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by people that can do these ultra marathon races. I mean, it just requires a whole nother level of grit and determination. So that's amazing. So how long does it take to do 100-kilometer race?
Hmm. For me, it was around 18 hours.
Gosh.
But, like for other folks, it was like 12 hours or 11, or, like the top athletes. I think they are amazing. Like they are from another planet. They just like run next to you and just see them like, passing you, and it's wow. So I've never trained professionally or anything. I had a trainer for a while, but it's been mostly my own experience, my own way of organizing my training. So it's never been like a professional thing or anything. But I've been very passionate about it. And yeah, it's long races. It's a long
Yeah.
time, but it goes past very fast.
Hmm.
Like you don't
Wow.
realize, oh my god, it's another hour. And so it doesn't feel that long.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Well, I'm sure you miss it so much. So hopefully you recover quickly and are able to get back at it, because I can tell that you love it and it's part of your lifeblood. So
Yeah, totally.
it's a bummer that accidents have to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit more about when you decided to start supplementing. Were you thinking that mostly for preventive reasons, or were you afraid you were already dealing with some deficiencies at that time in your own body? Or what was it that really got you passionate about, like, okay, I need to find the the perfect supplement for me that's going to work for my needs?
Hmm. What happened is, for one of the races I took part on, they wanted to make like a test. A test was required for some long distance races. They require you go through a medical test to make
Mm.
sure like everything is working fine and there's no issues with your heart. Or so I went through that test, and in my blood test it came out that I had a lot of anemia. So I have a lack of iron, and my iron, um, reserved. Is that how you say it? Like my iron reserves were really, really low, to the point that the doctor was like, I don't even know how you can run or take part in these races. Like, it's amazing that you can still run like long distances with these amounts of iron in your system. So I got a bit scared, like, okay, I love, the diet, I feel better. It's interesting because I never felt like energy depleted or anything. I don't know, but so that's when something clicked, and I thought, okay, maybe I need to supplement. Maybe I need to do something about this. So I started taking plant-based iron, and that's how I started, reading a little bit more about like supplementation for people who follow a vegan diet, and I started learning more about it, and I got pretty interested. I learned that it's very difficult to get your B12 from a vegan diet. Um, I mean, some foods can provide that, like mushrooms or tempeh or like some seaweed, but it's hard. Even like the active form of B12 is hard to get from those plant-based foods. So the more I was digging into it, the more I was convinced I needed to, like to supplement, especially if I was going to run for many miles per week. Like I wanted to make sure my nutritional needs were met. And that's how I became interested in sort of nutrition and supplementation. And it's interesting because my experience with supplements was so bad that I knew that there was a lot of room for improvement in that experience. And I was sure a lot of people like me were struggling to find supplements they could trust. And the other thing that I thought it was appalling was that, I'm a vegan for the environment, for health, for animals. Honestly, I'm one of these vegans who really, like it's for all these reasons. And I thought it was so unfair that people didn't know there were animals in their supplements. They are following this diet, they are making such a huge effort for, like not consuming animal derived products, and then their supplements are full of them, and there are some animal ingredients like animal derived ingredients like D3 comes from lanolin that is found in sheep's wool. People don't know this, right? And the sheep's wool industry, I think even vegans are not aware of, like, yeah, you're not killing the animal, but everything that goes into creating all this wool is just terrible. So I was more interested not only in nutrition, but also in the use of animal derived ingredients in these supplements, and the fact that it's not even mandatory for brands to include that information in supplement facts labels. And I will tell you in a minute, we are running a campaign to make a petition to the FDA to disclose this information. So, it was just like, really, for a vegan person, I think supplements were like the worst products ever, like to consume.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just like you said, a lot of people don't know or even think about it, because the truth is that in our world, in our products, there's so many things that have animal derived ingredients,
Oh, yeah.
from, you know, the inside of our cars to our cleaning products to,
I
the things
know.
that we consume. And it's just, it can be overwhelming, especially for new vegans. And they're
Mm.
like, what do I wear? What do I eat? What do I drive? It's just like so many different things to think about. So it is nice that there are people out there thinking about this for us to make
Mhm.
it easier, because there's not as many brands that are specifically made for vegans and for our values, like you said.
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the prevalence of animal derived ingredients and supplements. You mentioned some. And I will say that as a pediatrician, lanolin is really hard too, because it's in a lot of things, and it's in a
Yeah.
lot of things that I don't have a great replacement that I like to use for my patients. So one of my favorite products has lanolin. And then, of course, with all the lactating moms, they often use a lot of lanolin.
Yeah.
And it was something that took me a long time to figure out, oh, I didn't know that that came from an animal, you know? So it can be really tough. But let's talk about the prevalence of animal derived ingredients. What are some other things that we may not realize? You talked about magnesium, so I don't know about this. Tell me, where is that coming from? Where are some of these ingredients that it may not say on there or label that it's from an animal, that's probably coming from an animal?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I want to say is like a positive message. Every time I go to supplement conferences, like both in the US and Europe, you can see there are more and more ingredient companies creating plant-based alternatives for each of these vitamins, each of these nutrients. So I think there is a huge shift, towards like plant-based ingredients, and that's fueled by consumers who are demanding more plant-based clean ingredients. So this is happening. However, it's a bit of a shame, but a lot of supplement manufacturers, still use like a lot of these animal derived ingredients. For example, magnesium is actually not the magnesium that you normally take in a supplement. Is a different substance called magnesium stearate, and this is like a powder looking ingredient that is used to make the equipments and the machines that manufacture the pills, to make that process more stable, and to prevent the pills from sticking to the machines. So it's not even something that of course, there are traces of that ingredient in your pills, but it's not like an active vitamin or anything like that. There is another vitamin that is magnesium that comes from normally lab made, come from minerals or processes that like is not that's the active ingredient. But the magnesium stearate I'm referring to, this is made with the bones, tendons, and fat of pigs, sheep, and cow, and it's just like the byproducts. Animals, when they are killed, every single part of their bodies is used. You will be amazed, like nothing is left behind. Every single element of an animal is used for different industries, like from pets food to human food, but also, like for supplements, or in this case, they just take these byproducts and use them to create this substance. It's the same thing with gelatin. They use the same, very, very similar composition, but in a different texture or different process. But gelatin, a lot of capsules are made with gelatin. Normally they are like transparent, but you can also have them in many different colors. It's super cheap. It's the cheapest way of like creating gelatin. Fortunately, we have like these plant-based cellulose capsules that came into the market not that long ago, so it's kind of a recent alternative. But these are like the most common animal derived ingredients in our supplements, in the supplements you can buy in like in a grocery shop. And then another big one is lanolin for D3 that we just mentioned. And then I would say like the one that is killing the highest number of animals is actually omega-3, because omega-3 comes from fish oil, which is basically taking, like it takes around or up to 100 fish to create one single pill bottle of fish oil omega-3. So it requires like many fish to create just one bottle. And in the end, the fish is taking omega-3 from algae. So it's a middleman, right? Like it's not even the source. It's the same with B12 and animals, right? It's not that they produce B12 or like they store B12, right? And they can take B12 from eating a lot of plants that are, outside. They haven't been cleaned, they haven't been sanitized. And that's how they can, because they eat so, such huge quantities of these plants that contain the active form of B12. They store that, and we take B12 from the meat of animals. So it's the same thing with fish and omega-3. So for example, in Terraseed, which is like my brand, and this is our first product, the complete multivitamin for vegans, what we are doing is we are taking the omega-3 from microalgae grown indoors in South Carolina. So this is a completely controlled environment. We don't impact the environment or marine ecosystems. We don't go to the sea and take the seaweed from there, right? Like we just do it in a very controlled environment, and we extract that oil from the algae that is the actual the original source of these amino acid, right? That is omega-3. So this is the type of practices that we put in place to build our product. So for example, D3, you can extract D3 from algae, also from reindeer lichen. That's the one we are using. So we, for example, this is a fun story. Reindeer lichen grows in some forests. In this case, come from China. They're like vast, like huge forests where you can find these reindeer lichen, but we only take the one that is fallen, like that is on the ground. So we're not taking that from the trees or from the rocks, right? We're taking that from the ground. And there is so interesting because there are some concerns about this ingredient, for example, because it's been demanded so much because people want plant-based sources, right? Like plant-based ingredient sources that, like even with the fallen lichen, if you take it all, you can also impact that ecosystem, that forest ecosystem. So you have to be careful. That's why I like, when you're able to grow these ingredients or these ingredient sources in a controlled way, like the microalgae that I was talking about. So in fact, we are going to move our formula from D3 from lichen to D3 from microalgae. Is another form of algae, but everything that is like more control and more sustainable, that's our approach. And of course there are other ingredients that come from like B12, right? Like it comes from fermentation processes in a lab. So the impact of that process is almost nothing apart from like shipping the ingredient to our facilities and the manufacturing facilities. So for us, it's all about sustainability and taking care of animals and the planet. That's our main focus. And with that, it comes taking care of people, right? And people's health with the cleanest ingredients. And we are very transparent about our sourcing. You can go in our website and you can see all the information. Where do we source each of the ingredients? And I think, it's really important for consumers to understand all that information. There's also an issue with the potency and bioavailability of each of these ingredients. And the reason for that is that there are some plant-based ingredient sources that are providing that vitamin or that mineral or that nutrient, but the potency is not as high as in some other processes, like in a lab. For example, B12 is one that is almost always made in a lab, but some other sources of vitamin B can be found in quinoa, for example, or other sources that are really clean and really sustainable, but the potency of the ingredient that you extract in the end is not as high as, other ingredients that are created in a lab. So for us, it's always been a little bit, difficult to make that decision. Maybe it sounds cleaner and nicer to get your vitamin B's or from quinoa, but we also care about providing the right amounts of B12, especially for vegans. That's a tricky one. So and I think that's the if I had to recommend to take just one single vitamin, that would be B12, and I'm sure Yami, you will be agreeing with me.
Yes.
So there's like it's not an easy process if you want like to be a supplement. There are so many approaches you can take with your formulas, and how you get the ingredients, and you need to do a lot of R&D and a lot of research. What happens with supplements is that a lot of formulations are already created. They are called off the shelf formulations, so you can just buy them very cheaply, and you can just put like a label on a plastic pill bottle, and that's your brand, right? Like, it's very easy to create supplements, or to be like a supplement brand. What is not easy is when you start doing your proprietary, your own formulas, your own R&D, your own research. That's when it takes a lot of effort, and not everyone is ready to do that. So in our case, for example, we only have one product for now, because it took us a year and a half to develop it, and we know it's just such a curated, like, it's been built with all this care and all this sort of scientific approach, and also sustainability, and it's a piece of art in my opinion. Of course, like, I'm the founder of this company, but I really think that you are people's health is at stake here. You have to take this very seriously, and I'm very, very glad to see that there's more people demanding transparency in this industry and in this market. And I think it's happening with brands like Terraseed, but it's not only us. A lot of other brands are in this same direction. Maybe not so much sustainability, maybe more like scientific based or transparent. Like, I think we are also embracing the sustainability, because that's part of our DNA. But yeah, it's an industry that needs to do a lot of work, like to be a better one for people.
Yeah, well, I can just see that there's so many layers of complexity involved, so many different things to think about. Like I said at the beginning of the interview, I would be overwhelmed before even beginning. So I really admire that you have the bravery and the courage to tackle this, and to create something that you believe in, not just to slap a label on something else that maybe is not actually going to be the right thing. Because even just from a physician standpoint, even thinking about, okay, well, I would say one area of complexity is, well, what amounts are we going to put? And depending on what amounts you have to put in, it probably also changes the volume that you have to give. And then that changes the dosing, which is very complex too, So people don't want to take like 10 pills a day, and I think everybody expects it to just come in this small thing, but the more things you put in there, the more you have to give. So it's very complex. I wanted to go back a little bit to the gelatin too, because as a pediatrician dealing with children,
Yeah.
obviously one of the most common ways to deliver supplements now is gummies. And there's a lot of vegan ones out there that don't have gelatin, but that's another place where you see a lot of gelatin is in gummy vitamins. That's how they make them, that gummy, chewy thing, is by using the gelatin. So that's always a bummer when you're trying to find a product that a kid will actually take. Because this is what I tell parents. There's this huge debate. Like, I would never give my kids any of those things that has too much sugar. And I was like, you know what? If that makes the kid likely to take the vitamin, then it might be worth it, because it doesn't matter if you have some fancy low sugar vitamin that a kid's not going to take and you just paid $50 for. You know what I'm saying? So like, to me, I'm just like more practical. I'm like a parent too. I'm like, I'm not going to pay for a supplement my kid's not going to take. So sometimes you just need to use a little incentive, and make sure your kids are brushing their teeth, brush their teeth, have good oral hygiene. But that's just my perspective. I know people are very strong, passionate about no sugar ever in anything. But I kind of disagree with that, just from the perspective of like, well, you also want them to actually take the supplement. So it can get really complicated when you're starting to think about that. For adults, at least, most of us swallow pills, but for kids, it's a bit more rare. Even the teenagers, I'm telling you, teenagers, they go through this stage where their anxiety goes up and everything's overwhelming for them. And there's a lot of teenagers I have that won't swallow pills too. So it can be a little bit complex. Well, this is great. I'm so glad that you brought all this up, and I'm sure it's going to open the eyes of so many.
Yeah, can I add something to that? Because you were just, your comment was so spot on. We are now developing like the next product, which is a multivitamin for kids, right? And that's, that's the decisions you have to make, right? In the end, you can't have everything. It's impossible to have like no sugar, and then like no gelatin, no animal ingredients, like all these amazing sourcing and transparency and bioavailability and potency. Like, it's just so hard, right? I agree with you that kids don't take pills. Full stop. The only way you can provide vitamins to kids is two ways: gummies or sprays. Sprays, okay, but they don't like it as much. And if you end up like buying all these products that they are not going to take, it doesn't make any sense. For us, we had to make the decision now for these gummies to either go with sugar or stevia or monk fruit, or there are other options out there. The thing with gummies is that is stability, and it's hard to get stability with other sweeteners like stevia, monk fruit, and they're new in the market and they are being tested right now. Sugar is your safest bet to make sure like the product is stable. So in the end, we were saying, okay, what about organic cane sugar? I mean, kids need glucose, they need like sugar, right? Like in their systems. That's too much, of course, no. And you will never put like huge amounts in gummies, but it's interesting. It's the same with gelatin. Gelatin has been around in gummies forever. It's been tested. It's super stable. It's cheap. Everything looks great with gelatin. When you start using pectin or other, like gelling agents, is when you start seeing like, oh, the stability is not good. The shelf life is not good. So it's always like taking that more difficult route that at the same time is the right way, but it's the most difficult way. And it's the same with packaging, right? Like, we chose this fully biodegradable packaging, and we use like pouches and to refill, because this is a subscription based product. And it was such a challenge because all the co-packers were saying, oh, we don't have the machines to fill this type of bottles. Like, don't you have the plastic bottles? And we were like, no, this is like a new bottle that we've adapted to supplements, because we didn't want any plastic in our product. And they were, well, I'm sorry, I cannot work with you, like I don't have the machines. So we had to end up having everything in-house, doing it ourselves, very craftsy. Is that how you say it? Like very manual. And, that's higher cost. That's even more difficult. It's the same with formulations and how you build your products, what you put in your mouths. I think
so definitely you've had to go through so much problem solving, because every stage you're like, okay, here's all these different options, all these different problems. I mean, it's amazing. I'm sure that as a business owner, entrepreneur, as a person, this has helped you grow so much. You're using your brain in so many different ways. But you brought up the bottles, and I want to go into that because, we try to do our best at my house, and you realize that there's, just like you said, you're not going to please everybody. You're not going to be perfect. There's no way to be perfect. It's almost impossible to be 100% waste free. But you have to think about all these things and how it adds up over time. So how much plastic waste is produced by the supplement industry, and why did you decide to tackle that as well whenever you started building your brand?
Yes, so the supplement industry creates 1.8 billion plastic pill bottles every year. And I didn't mention this, but the same industry kills 24 billion animals every year. Most of them are fish. But listen to this. It's insane. It's crazy, right? So, with the plastic is actually really interesting. I don't think people are aware that only 9% of recyclable plastic actually gets recycled. Listen to this. Not even of the whole plastic produced every year. Only the 9% of recyclable plastic gets recycled. And this is a combination of things. I think there is such lack of information and education. Even for me, I'm in this industry, and I don't fully understand the implications of using different materials. And even people who, like we work with a bunch of companies who manufacture our packaging and different elements of our packaging. And even if you talk to them, we're still learning. We're still trying to assess the impact of this type of packaging versus like, virgin plastic or post-consumer plastic, or, like there are like many forms of plastic, of course. So it's a tricky one. At the moment, there are like four things you can do, right, with packaging in general. You can just throw it in the landfill bin, like a bin where it's going to end up in landfills, most likely. 3% of all plastic ends up in the ocean. So from all the plastic you see, all the plastic waste, 3% end up in the ocean. And then the second option is to recycle whenever it's possible, right? And these type of materials will be more like recyclable plastic or paper, cellulose, that type of material. And then the third one is to reuse packaging in any way or form, maybe even like giving a different life to any type of packaging you have around in the house. That will make a huge difference. The problem with plastic is not so much plastic, which is plastic. The problem with plastic is that it never really decomposes. It gets transformed into microplastics and then, pollute like the ocean or like the land. That's the issue with plastic, right? But plastic itself, if you reuse it, and you give plastic like a very long time and you recycle the plastic, we could stop like producing more plastic, and we could just reuse what we have and continuously reusing it. That wouldn't be a bad thing, right? But the system is not ready for that. And the reality is that the amount of single-use plastic, virgin single-use plastic, is still huge in the US. So like it's a big issue. Is pretty appalling. Like even with our packaging that is biodegradable, we can't really make sure that it will degrade or decompose, sorry, in soil, because landfill, if this packaging ends up in a landfill, it will be on top of like plastics and other materials, so it won't touch the soil, and this decomposes with soil. So even our packaging is not perfect, right? It's very interesting. There are companies right now researching, doing a lot of R&D. This is a huge industry. Packaging is a huge industry. So there are a lot of companies researching how to create materials that decompose, for example, under the water. We're looking at this protective sleeve recently that is made with this type of foam that you can rinse it and it will disappear under the water, or materials that can contain liquids that you can put in your mouth and it dissolves in your mouth so you can eat the material. So that's coming in,
Yeah.
I guess in about 10 years we will start seeing a lot of these new materials and new type of packaging. So this is coming. And it has to, right? Because this is crazy. It's not sustainable at all. But I think we're still in that process of understanding, what is the impact, what is the real impact of new materials. The recycling industry is also huge. They are not very interested in compostable materials because they make a lot of money recycling, plastics and other materials that are already, exist in the planet. So it's tricky. There are a lot of like economic interests in these industries, like to maybe block some of these initiatives of companies trying to do different type of packaging. But we will see. I think again, this is the same as with veganism or people wanting more plant-based option for their food, even people who are not vegan, right? Like I think that mainstream sort of demand is what is made vegan food booming, right? Like it was like a complete huge boom. So I think with packaging is going to be similar, where the consumer is going to start like demanding more this type of solutions. And in the end, it's the same with veganism. I think it's a mix of like the consumer, individuals, but also companies. How do we take responsibility about how we build our products? um, I meet a lot of companies in this space, the natural products space, that say, "Oh, we don't have, the margins. We don't have enough space. We don't have enough margin to include like sustainable packaging. That's, that we couldn't survive." Honestly, I think if we all put that at the forefront of our products, I think I think things will change, because the consumer sometimes doesn't know. They need to be educated. And I think companies and brands need to educate and need to make it easy for them, right? Like to make the right choice. And that's our obsession. It's just like no brainer, like just take everything is is clean, it's sustainable. It's just you don't have to care. You don't have, to your point, like, oh, I don't know what to do, and is this good, is this, just the right thing for people and the planet. That's the way I envision products in the future, every
Wow.
single product.
Well, thank goodness for human ingenuity, for innovation, for problem solving, because it does take a lot. And I'm glad that there are more options coming, because it is complicated and there's so many things to think about, and we're all just so busy,
Yeah.
trying to just live life. But that brings me to the animal save movement. So if you could just briefly tell me about that. You mentioned it earlier, the petition, so that people can hear more about that and how that they can help with it.
Yeah, so what happened is when we found out that all these animals were killed by the supplement industry, and we realized that the FDA is not requiring brands to disclose the use of animal derived ingredients in supplements, where, oh my god, we have to do something. So we got in touch with this nonprofit called Animal Safe Movement. They are based in the US and also like in Europe and many countries. And it was a really great experience just joining forces with them. And we launched this campaign a few months ago that is called the Transparent Label campaign. And if you have like show notes, Yami, I can just share more links and everything with folks. So basically, the campaign's goal is to not force, but petition the FDA to include a section in supplement facts label disclosing the use of animal derived ingredients. Right now, brands are using the vegan seal, but that's not mandatory. It's voluntary. Like some brands decide to put it, some others don't. In this case, it will be mandatory to disclose this information. We've raised, or we've gathered almost 5,000 signatures so far, and we need 25,000 to just even like pass the petition to the FDA. So we are working really hard to raise awareness about this and get more signatures, to get to that goal, 25,000 signatures goal. So it would be amazing if people could check it out and maybe sign. It's super quick, it's easy, and it, you know it will make a huge difference.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm so glad y'all started that. I'll definitely be signing it, and we will put it in the show notes, and I will share it on my newsletter and on social media, because I think it's very important. I think the more knowledge we have, the better. That way we can make informed decisions. And some people are still like, whatever, I don't care. But for the people that do care, that really helps, because it's like you're saying, like, I had no clue that magnesium stearate, which is in so many of these supplements, is coming from animal bones and tendons and ligaments. I did not know that. And how would you know? There's no way to know from just seeing magnesium stearate. It doesn't say magnesium stearate comes from this, you know?
Absolutely.
Maria, this has been great. Just a couple more questions. This is an open-ended one. What do you wish more people knew?
The amount of animal suffering that comes with your supplements. Plain and simple.
That gave me chills. Yeah. Time to wake up to that, unfortunately, right? It's nice to be a little blind to things sometimes, but you know, it's time. God. It's time to wake up.
This is another thing I need to care about. I know. It's hard.
Well, I'm so glad you started this company. Like I said, I'm glad that you reached out and that we know about you. But can you tell our listeners where they can find Terraseed? And also, I'm really interested to know, what do you think the timeline is for the kids' gummies?
Yeah, we're so excited about that project, and I think it's going to be an awesome product. So we're hoping to launch the Multi for Kids in May this year. So, you know, like a couple of months. We are finalizing like the gummy tests, and the packaging is already being built. So it should be, a matter of a few weeks, you know, like probably 8 weeks. And then people can find us in Terraseed.com. So that's our website. And also, if you want to follow us on Instagram, is also Terraseed. So it's easy to find us. And our name, Terra, means earth, right? And seed is just like this little seed we are planting here to contribute and make our contribution to this planet and all the animals living in it, including us.
Maria, thank you so much. Thank you for your persistence, your grit. The grit from your ultra marathons is passing over into making supplements now. So I appreciate your history and what you've experienced that is helping you in this journey. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm grateful for you. And I wish you the best of luck in this journey. And I hope that you have a very plantastic day.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure being here with you today and meeting you in person, Yami. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Hey, veggie lover. I hope that you loved today's episode. Will you take a second and do me a huge favor? Please subscribe to my podcast so that you never miss an episode. You're the reason I'm here, and I want to share it all with you. Thank you for listening, and have a plantastic day.